It is official. America is turning up the heat in a region already on edge. The Pentagon has confirmed that the U.S. is sending troops and one of its most advanced anti-missile systems to Israel. A move that will deepen U.S. involvement in the escalating conflict in West Asia. Amid expectations of an imminent Israeli assault on Iran, and even as Israel faces increasing criticism for targeting UN peacekeepers in Lebanon. This is basically the US showing its ironclad support for its ally. But the question is, what does this mean for the entire region? Let's just break this down for you step by step. Here's what happened. On Sunday, the Pentagon confirmed that the US is sending its THAAD defense system. THAAD stands for Terminal High Altitude Area Defense. The battery is used to intercept and destroy enemy missiles. One THAAD battery consists of 6 truck-mounted launchers, 48 interceptors, that is 8 per launcher, radar surveillance, radar, and a tactical fire component. THAAD basically employs kinetic energy to destroy missiles. That's its unique feature. Just to put it simply, the system does not carry explosive warheads. Instead, it destroys targets using kinetic energy. And it's the only U.S. system capable of intercepting targets inside and outside the atmosphere. It has far greater range than the Patriot system or Israel's state-of-the-art Iron Dome. So this is a big step up for Israel, in fact. What's more, the THAAD system is so complex that it requires a crew of 94 personnel, a crew of trained 94 personnel. That's the typical number of troops required to operate this anti-missile defense system. The system is specifically meant for anti-ballistic missile defense, and it could help Israel better defend itself against a future Iranian attack if Iran decides to respond to any Israeli strike. So one can imagine how significant this new deployment is. Basically, it means U.S. soldiers could actively engage in fighting between Israel and Iran on Israeli soil. The last time the U.S. sent the THAAD system to Israel was in 2019 for an exercise. Shortly after October 7 attack by Hamas last year, the U.S. sent the THAAD system to West Asia to an undisclosed location. This is the THAAD's first operational deployment in Israel. And maybe you are wondering, why THAAD? Why did the Biden administration decide to send its most advanced missile system to Israel? You see, with Israel preparing to respond to Iran's massive missile barrage, particularly following the death of the Hezbollah leader Hassan Nasrallah, they say that this deployment of the system will basically bolster Israel's defenses. The Iranian authorities, in fact, have been warning that any Israeli aggression, including potential strikes on Tehran's nuclear facilities, would provoke a forceful response. In fact, on Monday, Iran dismissed talks with the U.S. Tehran said that it currently sees no grounds for indirect talks with the United States via intermediary Oman. In June, remember, Iran said that it had held indirect talks with the United States via Oman, despite having no diplomatic relations with its enemy. Speaking with reporters in Oman's capital, the Iranian foreign minister reportedly said, and I'm quoting, "Currently, we don't see any ground for these talks until we can get past the current crisis." The process, he said, had been halted due to the specific conditions of the region. Remember, on the 1st of October, Iran fired 200 missiles at Israel in what it said was retaliation for the killing of pro-Iran leaders in the region. Israel has vowed to respond, and while it is preparing for its response, Israel had requested the U.S. for arms and ammunition, something that it has solicited over the past year during its war against Hamas in Gaza. According to reports, it would take at least a week to get the THAAD system, as well as the necessary troops, to Israel. And the move will also see American troops operating the ground-based interceptor in Israel. When asked about it on Sunday, Joe Biden said only that he had ordered the Pentagon to deploy the system to defend Israel. And while the system represents the first U.S. troop deployment to Israel since the war in Gaza started, the U.S. military did build a temporary pier off the coast of Gaza. This was in the month of May. It was meant to rush humanitarian aid to the enclave. It was dismantled in July after weeks of damage from the rough seas. And late last month, the Pentagon said that it would send a few thousand American troops to West Asia as Israel intensified its attacks on Hezbollah in Lebanon. And now, with the move confirmed on Sunday, senior Pentagon officials are reportedly debating whether the increased U.S. military presence in the region will contain the war as they had hoped or inflame it further. You see, in recent weeks, several Pentagon officials have expressed concern that Israel has been waging an increasingly aggressive campaign against Hezbollah, knowing that an armada of American warships and planes stand ready to help in case Iran provokes a war. According to reports, the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, General Charles Q. Brown Jr., raised the issue in meetings at the Pentagon and at the White House. He has questioned the effect of expanded American presence in the region on overall combat readiness, on the ability of the U.S. military to respond quickly to conflicts, including with China and Russia. And reports say that he, along with U.S. Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin and other officials, have tried to balance containing the conflict and emboldening Israel in the process. In fact, on Saturday, the U.S. Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin spoke with the Israeli Defense Minister Yoav Gallant to express his deep concern about Israeli forces firing on UN peacekeeping positions in Lebanon. Yet, Israeli jets continue to hover over Lebanon. Israeli airstrikes continue to hit Lebanon. So what really is Israel and America's state of play here? What's going on? The Pentagon says that the deployment of the THAAD defense system is aimed at defending Israel and Americans in Israel from further missile attacks by Iran. But won't deploying the THAAD system continue this tit-for-tat in West Asia? Remember, this mission marks the first significant deployment of American troops to Israel since the war in Gaza started. It also comes just 3 weeks before the U.S. presidential election, in which U.S. involvement in the conflict has been a polarizing issue on the campaign trail. U.S. officials have been encouraging Israel to avoid targeting Iran's nuclear sites out of fear that it could spark an even larger escalation, an escalation that could upend the global economy. We all saw what happened after the Ukraine war. The world is still reeling from it. So then, doesn't the deployment of the THAAD missile system add more fuel to the fire that is already burning in West Asia? Remember, the U.S. has already sent more than 50,000 tons of armaments and military equipment to Israel since the start of the war. Now, both presidential nominees, Vice President Kamala Harris and former President Donald Trump, find themselves unable to avoid the subject ahead of the November elections. Both have vowed to defend Israel while expressing support for a swift end to the war. But if there is one key takeaway here, it is this: the conflict in West Asia has deeply divided the Democratic Party. Young voters and Arab Americans are criticizing Vice President Kamala Harris for not calling for restrictions on American arms to Israel. Republicans, on the other hand, have attacked the Biden administration for criticizing Israel's military tactics following Hamas's October 7 attack. Still, despite disagreements between President Joe Biden and the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, the president's decision to deliver the THAAD system represents another example of his willingness, perhaps, to trust Netanyahu and give him the benefit of the doubt. And in a way, it shows that Biden would rather use carrots and not sticks to control Israel's war conduct. On Friday, the Biden administration imposed economic sanctions on Iran's petroleum industry, targeting Tehran's fleet of tankers in the hope that the move would dissuade a strike on Iran's energy assets. But putting American troops in Israel amid an impending attack basically increases the risk of American casualties. And if that happens, the US could be dragged even further into the widening conflict. And what would happen if an Iranian missile hits a US soldier, for example? There is a high probability that the US would take kinetic action against Iran. You see, for the past year, the Biden administration has decided against putting troops on the ground out of safety concerns for US forces and fears of being dragged into the conflict. And now America seems to be putting that theory to test. Even if the THAAD battery defeats any and all missiles headed its way, the Israeli military still cannot guarantee the safety of the troops from drones. So then, has America turned up the heat in West Asia with its THAAD move? And will America follow Israel into war with Iran? We will have to wait and watch. To stay up to speed with the latest news, download the WION app and subscribe to our YouTube channel.